thing you know, they come running again. And then again. And I finally said, excuse me, I have to find out what's going on out there. What are you doing? Oh, let's go to our yeah, there were four of them. They were all cats. They were the cutest things. I had to send them on their way. It was before school started, but they should have been in the room 5 minutes earlier. They were taking a day. At least they weren't calling couple of answers. No, they had the energy. They had the energy.
Half a box of Girl Scout cookies. I'll do that to you. S'mores.
Thank you. I have one. Everybody in the bedroom. Maybe I'll yeah, I can't assist me. Yeah, that would be nice. Ashley, how are you? Well, it's just a little so the cafeteria was I would need someone too.
I'll sit up here. I'll sit there.
Did you sign it? I know.
Sit up here.
I guess this much.
Only when he's not down.
Your wife. I can't read these abbreviations that they use on texting.
Oh, good. Probably in the back row.
Excuse me.
I don't know.
Only said it's the bottom right.
Where it says record.
Yeah, probably.
That maybe?
Looks like might be the answer to me. And at the end of the meeting, hit it again.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
You got a job now, huh?
I'm all chocolate out.
Oh,
Did she? I was going to say, did she?
Yeah, she's here.
Just like contests. Just can't eat any more chocolate. We're done.
And then we have
Hanging from the ceiling. I'm just like. I'm starting to get a headache from eating so much chocolate. It's from the chocolate. I have a caffeine headache.
Excuse me, pardon me.
Kind of warm in here.
How are you?
I just can't take it.
All day. Let's just leave it.
When the heat turns off in the building a certain time, I'm sitting in my office. I just basically going.
I ran outside without a coat. Jumped in my truck. Drove to the store. Looked at my thermometer. It was 22 degrees and like.
So what's the doing?
Meeting order. Don't please rise, President.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Roll call.
Mr. Barlow. Mr. Carr.
Here.
Mrs. Piscato. Mr. Hatter.
Here.
Mr. LaFever.
Here.
Mr. Matthews.
Here.
Mrs. Weitzel. Mrs. Van Meter. Mr. Wickham.
Okay. I want to announce that there was a short executive session previously tonight for some legal issues that we discussed. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the February 9th meeting?
I move.
Second.
Discussion. Okay. I have several issues with the minute. The first issue is under presentation reports. I would like to see us start recognizing the students within minutes. I know the minutes are just a brief summary of what transpired during the meeting, but I think it would be good that when we get students up talking about their accomplishments, that we do more than recognize the accomplishments, that we recognize the students as well. So people who got up and gave the presentations, in my mind, should be listed in the minutes. Thank you. Thank you. Going over to building celebrations, first paragraph. Again, we talk about what was done, but we don't give recognition to the students who got up and were actually recognized that during that presentation. So I'd like to see that amendment as well. Consent agenda, first item. Mr. Matthews requested that items B and C be pulled as he did not understand the dates. Actually, that's not correct. I understood the dates. The issue was that what was being presented in the agenda did not accurately reflect what it was that we were voting on. In fact, if you look at this time's agenda, it accurately reflects what we'll be voting on. So that was the issue. So that needs to be corrected.
How would you like it worded?
Just like I just said. I mean, it was.
Well, last time I had controversy, it had to go to vote. So,
Okay, well, however they want to do it, I think it needs to be fixed.
You are gonna have to vote to amend the minutes. You know, as
We
worded as you
and how would you like it worded?
Okay. Well, Mr. Matthews requested that B and C be pulled because the agenda statement did not match with what it was that was presented to the board for review. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay.
Should we not add these student names to that?
Yes,
Word?
yes. Actually, I was going to recommend that we table this until the next meeting. that they would have time to correct them and bring them to us to vote on at the next meeting.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
There are other items?
Yeah, there's one more.
Okay.
Page 4081, the discussion in that top paragraph. My understanding was that our options would be explored, that Ms. Dean would come back with a proposal with pros and cons for each of the options before moving forward. And there's no discussion of that within that.
Actually,
Either I misunderstood.
actually, the motion was to authorize the administration to sell the property. There was, that was the motion. So that's what you voted on, to let the administration make that decision and sell the property at their best decision.
Yeah. Okay.
Everybody's fine with that.
Okay, we'll need the first and second on that approval. Okay, cool. Then do we have a motion to table the minutes until our next meeting for corrections? Second? Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you, Ms. Dean. You make corrections on that. All right. There no presentations of reports tonight? No? Okay, and then on to the student representatives. Well, again, Mr. Ford.
Well, this week for the high school is FFA Spirit Week, so everyone's each day has a specific thing. Like today was Bring Your Car Heart, and so it's just different things that we have during the week that support the FFA, and then at the end on Friday we have the Spirit Week for it, and spring sports start this coming up Monday. And the other thing that our school is doing right now is Project ARC, which our goal is to raise around $5,000, and the purpose of raising this much money is to purchase a gift card from Hyper International, and it provides agricultural resources to impoverished communities around the world. So I think that's pretty important. And as I mentioned last meeting, the elementary talent show March 18th.
We're going to tell them what you're selling for the fundraiser. Maybe somebody like jump up.
Yeah, they're for the fundraisers for the Project Art. It's we're selling. I'm part of NHS, and we're selling chocolate and bulbs for flowers, and I think the FFA is selling bulbs too.
Great job. Thank you. All right. So everybody remembers the celebration table with the principals giving their, that's going to be the first meeting of the month. So we'll be doing that tonight, but we'll look forward to our next meeting. Public comment period. And first up to bat is Sarah Laird.
I need to come up there and stand where I'm at.
There in case somebody needed it.
Okay. Tonight, I am going to speak to you about the 50 miles a day that my children spend on a school bus. This is not the first time I've spoken to this board about this issue. What's yet to be seen, though, is if I will receive any kind of response this time from the board, unlike the last time. It's been brought to my attention that in a recent education committee meeting that I was not able to attend because of other activities with my children, it was stated that none of the bus rides were increased as a result of cutting 2 buses at the beginning of this school year. And I would like to call that out as it is, as a lie. My daughter's bus cards, I have them with me. I can show them to anybody that would like to see them, from August of 2013 and from August of 2014. The 2014 card, the pickup time increased by 12 minutes to 7:46 a.m. However, I can tell you that I need to be at the bus stop by 7:40, and this morning it was 7:43 that the bus picked them up. In the evening, the drop-off time increased 17 minutes to 4:38 p.m. I can also tell you that the mileage the bus 3 travels increased at least 7 miles each way in 2014. A total of 50 miles from my doorstep round trip is what my children spend on the bus. And I'm not the last stop or even the second to the last stop on my bus. I've also heard that the current response to these complaints was that we're going to have drivers keep logs. Well, I'm going to say why bother? Because at this point in the year, I can list at least a dozen parents on my bus route who have made other arrangements for their children, whether it's paying, which I do sometimes. Sometimes I have to pay for daycare because to get my daughter to basketball at 5:30, I can't have her getting off the bus at 5 o'clock and feed her and get her back to school. It doesn't work. So I have to pay daycare to take my child after school. 2 children. As a result, I really don't think you need to log it. The fact of the matter is it's 25 miles one way from my house to the school with the route it's taking. And actually, I talked to the bus driver today, and there's another little jog that I didn't know the bus is currently making. So she said it's probably closer to 27 miles round trip or each way for my kids. So at 35 miles per hour, 25 miles, because 35 miles per hour is about the average, it would take you 43 minutes just to drive that route, not including any stops. So to say these buses aren't well over an hour is ridiculous. So my question is tonight, we're voting on whether to extend this contract. I guess I'm looking to Carolyn Bean because we don't have a transportation supervisor now. So in this contract, are these buses back?
Becky Paquette.
Hi, Becky Paquette from Carroll Valley. I'd like to take this opportunity to ask a question of the board. I would like to know when the school board will be advertising for, searching for, and hiring a new special ed director. Currently, Ms. Karen Kugler is filling 3 administrative jobs, director of curriculum, director of special ed, and superintendent. 2 of those jobs are full-time plus. I know when she was just special ed director, my husband and I would find her here at 6:30 at night on parent-teacher conference night. She emails us back during Christmas break. That was more than full-time. She's been doing a wonderful job so far in handling the duties of all 3 positions. You ought to be bidding her for a Supergirls cape. Come next year, Karen will probably not be filling director of special education. She will either be the permanent superintendent or retiring. There are, at last count, approximately 121 students in this district with individual education plans. Those students, in keeping track of ever-changing special education laws, are the responsibility of the director of special ed. That's a full-time job. This district is currently preparing a 5-year plan, considering a $6.3 million refunding of the general bond and dealing with the everyday necessities of running a school district. This is a full-time job. And we've been through this rodeo before in other positions. We all know that you love savings through attrition. Unfortunately, I can see a couple of you saying after 3 or 4 months, the roof hasn't fallen in yet. Let's just keep on doing what we're doing. Everyone that Mr. Winter's putting in, I'm sure I'm estimating well on this 67-year-old lady. Up. I'll leave forward this one final thought. Special education is federal law. While there are some PA school codes that deal with special education, it all comes back to federal law. There are now 2 additional sheets on every student's individual education plan that were given at our meetings. These are partially completed forms for due process and fair hearing. In other words, these are pre-filled out complaint forms for the parents. So if they know their rights and if the rights aren't being followed, we have really easy things to mail in now. Now, since I've been here in 2008, this would never have crossed my mind. Karen's done a wonderful job for both my children. If we continue trying to fill this position on a part-time basis, I'm waiting for the first parent to send that in.
Thank you. Dean Thomas.
That's the way to make the call.
And actually, I have a presentation tonight. On behalf of the fledgling Fairfield Area Historical Society, I'd like to present a copy of the history of the early Fairfield town lots to the school district. But wait, there's more. I also have a copy of Fairfield in the Civil War. May I approach?
tonight to, I guess, ask the board, those of you who may have knowledge of this, to look into the 6th grade camp program for the middle school kids. It's my understanding from doing a little bit of research that each year, Principal Weber asks for a certain amount of money. She gets usually less than that to fund this program. And any of us who have been kids in anywhere around here, I grew up in Gettysburg, 6th grade camp is kind of a rite of passage that you do. I understand that it's now been cut, that it's been lessened now to just a few days instead of a full week, which I understand, I guess, for budget reasons. But I have a problem when my child comes home and is seeking money and is seeking addresses of family members or friends that we can write to solicit money. And I don't normally have a problem with that. But when I've heard this board say that they want to be fiscally responsible, and we've had, several meetings about whether we're going to hire somebody for the secretaries in the middle school office or whether we're going to hire an aide for elementary school. And yet we can have Mr. Chain, we can be paying him for not working. We can increase Ms. Kugler's salary, which with all due respect to you, I'm sure you deserve. I'm just saying we are paying for things we don't necessarily need to do. So it's like we're talking out both sides of our mouth. We want to be fiscally responsible, and yet we can take money and pay people to not work, but we can't fund the 6th grade camp program. In years past, I've had 2 other children go through this program at Fairfield, and the parents volunteer, they come, they work in the kitchen, they bring food and snacks, and that's all part of the process. I get that. What I'm asking for the board to do is look at this now, especially given the decisions that have been made in the last few months. Certainly, we have a few $100s that we can give to this program. What I'm understanding is that Diana Zimmerman, who used to be here, would fundraise for this. She's no longer here this year. And so it's left, I think, on the teachers' shoulders to do this. Our teachers have too much to do. They don't need to be fundraising now, especially at this time of the year, to try to fund this program. I've already sent my check in, I'm fine with that, but there's probably several parents who can't. And I think this board should really take a look, because we can't say that we're trying to save a few dollars here when we're spending thousands of dollars on the other side. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mayor Stanley.
Good evening. I wanted to just say a few words in an organization we formed 10 years ago. It's called the Fairfield Regional Emergency Management Agency. You've probably never heard of it. It's like FEMA, but we're local. What we do is we enterprise 4 districts: Carroll Valley, Liberty, Fairfield, of course, and Highland. Highland just came in. So what we do is we have approximately maybe 6,000 people population. We set aside $6,000 a year, $1 per person. We never use it. It's there for emergencies if it's needed. We don't use it as races. It stays within the budget of the municipalities. We do a number of things. We all take courses. Take the men's courses so you can prepare for emergency activity, which we all should really be taking, but all elected officials have to take these. There's 100 and 700 at least. And we take courses down at the Emergency Preparedness Center. I'm taking tourism courses down there. We had an active shooter course in the school here 5, 6, 7 years ago. We brought a team in from Baltimore, did a lockdown on the Saturday, and we simulated activities we never want to see. Of course, I've spoken to security before, and I need a separate meeting on that. So what I'm asking for tonight is, we had the same group for many years: Ron Harris, myself, Bob Jackson, Craig Rocky, we're the 4 executive chairman. It's very good. We do tabletop exercises. We're always looking for volunteers. I think some of the school board members get an awful lot out of it. There's no pay, it's just voluntary. We meet once every 2 months. And if you want to join, you can certainly contact me or probably Carol, Ron Harris, or somebody over the Carroll Valley office. And we'd like to also see students, if possible, young students, teachers, and just the general public. Because in these tabletops, things can happen. We've activated Freeman in the past. Usually it's for snowstorms and ice storms. One year we did a real thing, an ice storm. We found that the people would not leave their homes to come to the shelter, which is the Fairfield Fire Company.
because they didn't want to leave their pets at home. And we then thought, well, we got to buy pup tents. That's what we did. We had pup tents and pups for cats. So that's where it is. We're looking for volunteers. Call me or call Gail Matters over in Carlisle and they'll tell you how to sign up. It's a lot of fun. You meet great people. And it doesn't cost a thing. There's no charge, of course. You don't spend very much.
When's your next meeting?
So we just had one last Monday, so we'll have one in 2 months. So in April. And I'll let you know. We'd like to have it, as many of you as can attend. It's a lot of fun. It's interesting. We hope it never happens. We just prepare. Thank you.
Stacy Whitmore.
I just have a couple comments about the calendar. I would also just piggybacking. I can't tell you how many evenings I've driven by and the lights have been on in the superintendent's office. So, and it's getting dark early. Couple comments about the calendar. First of all, I love a lot of what I see on the calendar. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at it. Speaking as a teacher and as a parent, I love a start with 3-day week. As a teacher, I hate to go back 5-day week with kids, so I love that we start the calendar with just 3 days. I also really appreciate the Friday before Labor Day. In general, with all school districts starting before Labor Day, it's nice to have that Friday before Labor Day so that families can still take that last beach vacation or that last summer vacation. So to have that Friday is awesome. My children here, but their comment as we sat together and looked at the calendar was, my other one's a 7th grader, Ricky's a junior. They love that there are preserved days that are not snow days, especially the days prior to Easter and spring vacation. And Jeremy also thought it was really cool to next year actually get the President's Day off. He's a skier. Absolutely. So those are just my calendar comments. Thank you.
Rhonda Myers.
I actually am speaking on behalf of Katie Gamer. She sent an email, and myself as well. And it's regarding the bus routes. She has some concerns about the logistics of the bus ride. Her daughter Olivia is a kindergartner. She's in Mrs. McMullen's class. And she's picked up each morning anywhere from 8:24 to 8:36. The time fluctuates by 12 minutes. Now, I know my bus driver, Luann Dill, she had it down to a minute. She was spot on every day. Frequently, Olivia is late to class. She's witnessed herself on 2 occasions because she's a parent volunteer in the class. On the days that she's able to drop Olivia off, she passes bus 11 as she's leaving and sees bus 11 approaching Route 116 from multiple trails or roads, and she thinks it's odd that the bus will change routes so frequently. I didn't realize buses change the routes during the week, so she doesn't understand that. Her daughter told her stories about how crowded the bus is and that there are typically 3 children to seat. My daughter has also said the same thing. She gets pushed off the seat on the ride to school. It's very crowded, and they're kindergartners, so they're sitting, well, my daughter's in 2nd grade, so she's closer to the back. But Olivia's in the front, so if you have to evacuate that bus and you have 3 kids per seat, you're not getting off that bus if it's on fire. And that is a very big concern to parents. I've seen a bus on fire. Olivia's drop-off time varies drastically from day to day. She's dropped off at a daycare right off of Skylark. And her drop-off time is anywhere between 4:10 and 4:25, which is a problem for 2 reasons. Number one, the daycare provider has to walk about 150 yards, and she has to tote all these kids with her. And in the weather that we're having right now, it's not a very good idea. So that's a 15-minute time difference. Also, she's seen 3 buses on Skylark, and she wants to know why there are 3 buses on Skylark. You know, she thinks there should be a more reasonable route for them because her daughter's bus travels to Ortana. She understands that part of the issue with bus 11 is that the driver transports children from private schools in Gettysburg. And she knows this because she was leaving the school one day and she saw the children exiting bus 11. There are only a few children, and she wants to know if it's possible if a small van could accommodate this amount of children because it can resolve a lot of problems. Her daughter has complained that the kids from her bus are the last ones at school, waiting at length for their bus to arrive. She said she's trying to instill resilience in her child, so she's trying not to make a big deal of it. But knowing that the reason is because the Gettysburg transport is frustrating to her. She's attempted to speak to the transportation department on numerous occasions, but she hasn't gotten very far. So she would like, if you would like to speak to her about this, she would, ask for you to contact her. She doesn't know who to contact at this point. I can give you her information then.
And April.
You have a participating public audience who would like to know exactly where our district sits financially. Many false numbers and assertions have been stated over the past year. This community deserves to know the true state of our district. It would be great if you as the board could speak in common language and openly about this year's audit and financial statement. According to the Pennsylvania Board of Education website, our district debt has lingered around $20 million for the past 3 years. This is more than Upper Adams or Littlestown school districts. We know we are unnecessarily paying double superintendent salaries and legal fees due to your lack of transparency. See, we didn't want to raise tax rates. We said the district is in great financial health. Yet we have huge debts over our head, and you continue to strip our students of resources and staff. You must stop the excess spending. You must find ways to decrease our debt without hurting our students. Mr. Hatter, have to stop lying to the EJ in public.
Okay, we're going to go on to the director comments. I'd like to ask Ms. Kugler to start off, that I think you can address probably some things that we can, and I think that would be great.
Actually, I received some phone calls about the buses since the education committee, and I am talking to the transportation office. We are looking at the idea of a van for those kids who are the furthest away that would expedite their trip home. So we are looking at that option because it's such a small number of kids that we could actually probably put them on a van and get them home much quicker. So I am looking at that. As far as Mayor Stanley, just so you know, there actually was a active shooter training that 3 of us went to the week of Christmas. And yes, I was shot with pellets. It did hurt. It's called Alice training because nowadays you've all heard of lockdowns. Schools do lockdowns. Well, that's no longer the recommendation to do strictly lockdowns. So one of the things we're starting to look at is how we redo our safety plan because lockdowns have proven not to save lives. Actually make students sitting targets. So we will be changing the way we do certain things. And some of you will find that. Actually, the rule now is to escape if you can. And so we are going to start looking at how we get those words out and make the process much better for our students. This is the question, answer to your question. Actually, the board's waiting on my recommendation. And I'm trying to seriously look at what we need as in my former positions. I mean, the likelihood that you're going to find somebody with special ed curriculum, PIMS, and everything else is going to be very rare. So I'm actually trying to find out how I separate that out for the future of the district, so that we don't get stuck somewhere in the future with a position that's like not meeting the needs of what we have, and then we're going to say, oh, well, I think we need this other position. That's what we're waiting on. Can I give the education committee report?
You can.
Okay. Since Mr. Whitcomb and Mrs. Van Meter are in here, I will give you an update of what happened with the education committee. We talked about, and I just went blank. Mrs. Weber, March 5th, thank you. March 5th, we will actually be having a meeting, Mrs. Weber and I, with the parents of this year's 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Because one thing I've heard in the 16 years I've been here isn't so much that this community is upset that the fifth and sixth graders are housed in the middle school. It's that they ride the buses with the high school kids and what they're learning from our high school kids. Nothing personal. So in answer to that, the easiest thing and the thing that we can do the quickest that meets everybody's needs is to look at running the fifth and sixth graders on an elementary schedule. So in other words, they will ride the elementary buses because they'll be on the elementary time frame. And what we're going to do is when we have the parents here on the fifth is, I know a lot of the parents that have called me even this year and talked to me about, the fifth and sixth graders being in this building. And when I say, have you ever been in the middle school? Do you know where the fifth and sixth graders housed? I get no. I just don't want. So then when I start to talk about how isolated the fifth and sixth graders are, and that this would solve that issue, they've all told me, well, that's a great idea. That's a great solution. I didn't know that. So the other thing we're going to do on that day is offer the parents to walk down the middle school, and we'll show you where the fifth and sixth graders are housed. It doesn't affect the schedule in any way, except that the fifth and sixth graders will come later and leave later. The other advantage is what the elementary kids are used to is having their music lessons before school. This will still allow that to happen because the music department will already be here because they're running on a secondary schedule. So they can offer those lessons before school, which is what the elementary kids are used to anyhow. So that was a discussion of the education committee. We also discussed the idea of adding additional AP or college in the classroom courses. Mr. McDowell was in negotiations with one of our teachers about adding AP biology, but because we've added the new 9th grade science class, that person's not comfortable yet going on to a new course to the level of AP biology. So he was willing to look at that in a year or two, but not next year. So then the discussion was, can we talk to other districts that may offer a college in the classroom and maybe share a teacher, much like we do it with French. So that will be discussed. Mr. McDowell and I will be investigating that with the other school districts and seeing if that's an option. What else did we talk about? We talked about security and some broken windows that have not been fixed yet that are now in the process of being fixed. I think that was the major parts of that committee meeting.
Thank you. Anything else?
If I can think of it, because I'm getting old.
Jump right in. Okay, other committee reports. Mr. Barlow, do you have anything? Okay. Mr. Thieber. Any other board members have any comments? Matt?
It's been, almost 4 months since the bomb threat. And at this point, it seems state police aren't making any progress. I do know that there's some talk about giving them a little more time. I would like us to set a date certain at which we would make a formal request to the state police that they refer that case to the FBI, because we need resolution on who committed this crime against the community. And so I'm basically putting the board on notice that I'm going to make a motion next month that we do that. So
Do we know if that has been referred to a federal agency or not? We do not know. It may have been, we don't know, but we'll find out.
no later than the second meeting in March. If I haven't gotten some kind of feedback that I find satisfactory, I will be making a motion that will put to a vote on this board as to whether or not we can get the state police to refer that to the FBI. I think it's ridiculous that it's taking this long to resolve this case. Unsatisfactory.
Anyone else have any comments?
I have a comment. I'm asking Bruce down here. Bruce, you're the finance committee. I mean, this lady's accusing us of running up a debt of $20 million.
No, I didn't say you ran it up.
Would you address that somehow? Because
I started looking.
Go ahead.
I started looking at the bond that's before us to be
enough for that fan.
Sorry about that. In the school year 21 and 22, back then, that's basically when we got the new building. The bond went essentially almost, it was set at 19 million. So over the past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 13, 14 years, we still sat at 19 million. It's not 1 or 2 or 3. Several. I am very
The
upset.
state only keeps those 3. I was looking at the state website,
I understand.
and that's why I quoted the state website.
Personally, I'm very upset of it. But whatever it was, decisions were made back then. I can understand some of it. I can't understand all of it.
You can't see on it, correct?
No, we cannot. And we're going to be saddled with more debt as teasers gets placed onto the books, which I understand is another possible 19 million.
Some people don't know.
So we're addressing it, but we haven't got to a final presentation on that. Okay, that's what where we stand on that.
And in answer to your question, Mr. Schuster, is the Pennsylvania school employees retirement.
Oh, that's the piece.
That's the pieces.
Okay. The other thing that we're facing is a declining enrollment. And we started the year at 1,065. My last note was we're at 1,048.
My question on that.
They're leaving here.
They're flying.
Yes. Maybe some are leaving because of bullying. I've sat with parents that are very upset over that and pulled their kids out. A couple of parents, and the reason I ran for this was because the neighbor had 2 little kids who were going here. He was working 3 part-time jobs. When the reassessment came along, couldn't afford it. The bank came and essentially gave him a choice: sell the property or we take it. Sold the property, unfortunately. They reassessed his property. He had just bought it 2 years before. They reassessed his property at 3 times the value. How absurd.
Out of my corner around.
Yes. I even helped a neighbor. I won't go into that. I get really upset.
Yeah,
thinking about
thanks, thank you, Mr. Beaver.
But yes, we are looking at the bonds, and yes, I know it's been sitting around that for quite some time, and I don't like it. It's not a good idea to keep a running debt because right now we're lucky the interest rates are low. What are they going to be in the future? Who knows? I'd rather be debt free.
Thank you, Bruce.
And just so you all know, actually, Mrs. D and I had several discussions, and we are adding the business manager's report to the board agendas starting in March, which is something we were both very used to when we were both in Waynesburg. So that'll be added so that she can actually give the report to the state of the district.
Anyone else have any comments?
I was just,
when I was on the board in the 80s, we had student reps, and they sat with the board, and we started out with, again, the students sitting with the board, because they really are a non-voting member of the board, and I really wish they sat with us.
The problem is, they're not actually a non-voting member. They aren't members, they represent the school district student activities.
But we have
and there was such a
policy that they're going to give their opinions, but they can't vote on them.
Maybe we need to look at the policy, because that really does go against school code of what their role is. I agree. I mean, they're with the administration only because there was such a confusion in the past by people in the community who thought that, didn't understand why they weren't serving members, why they weren't taking the oath of office. And we had to explain that several times. So it was like, okay, and with the administration, they're still giving the same reports. That's fine, I don't disagree with you. Okay, I appreciate that.
Anyone else? I have a couple comments to make. First of all, Mr. Thomas, thank you again for the historical books. The school appreciates that. Bob, we're going to meet afterwards for a few minutes. And I want to thank Ms. Kugler for and her administration. They're the ones that did all the hard work on the calendar. All we really do is say, great job and approve it, but they did all the tough work because there was a lot of.
And we actually did FDA because the union also was part of the committee, and we came to consensus pretty quickly.
That's a lot of work right there. So thank you all that had a hand in that. Appreciate that. So, and that's all I have to say. Let's go on to the consent agenda. Is there any items to pull?
I would like to pull A.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve all of the consent agenda items besides A and K?
So A.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay. Do a roll call.
Mr. Barlow? Mrs. Neitzel?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. LaFever?
Yes.
Mrs. Piscato?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
And Mr. Hatter?
Yes. All right. Administrative action A, Ms. Microsoft.
Well, and I know this is a lot of hard work that to go through to put this together. However, I have some concerns with only 3 built-in snow days after Christmas. Or am I reading that incorrectly?
After Christmas? Well, if you count June 2nd and 3rd, there are actually 5.
All right, can you just tell me what they are?
February 12th.
Yeah.
March 23rd.
Yes.
April 29th.
Yes, those are the only 3
And June 2nd and 3rd.
Well.
And we purposely put the graduation day on Wednesday instead of on a Friday, which has been the last couple of years, because we run into the same thing we ran into this year. We have snow days and we end up in the next week, and then parents are upset because they have family coming in for that weekend and now graduation is Monday.
I've heard that.
So that way, every year, with graduation being on Wednesday, even if we had the snow and we haven't made up enough days, because I'm looking at how many days we've already got this year.
Well, the
it'll take
last
us
2
to Friday.
years we've had.
Right, but this year we really only have 5 snow days left here with the bomb.
However, more education gets done within the school years than at, by making those, kids important. And I'm just, with trying to get as much instruction time in prior to the testing, which is so important now to these legislators, I just am really concerned that particularly.
Well, and I will say before I gave the draft to the committee, the one thing I wanted to look at is how many instructional days are worth a month. And I kept it right around 19 to 20 almost every month. So that it was a consistent amount of instructional time.
And really 2 weeks of Christmas, I know that we can walk in for everybody, but I mean,
Well, let's be honest. When Christmas is on Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are pretty much party days. How much instruction will occurs? Well, I don't disagree with you, but if we're going to talk about realities, we're seeing the Christmas movies and.
I never take my children out.
And that's one of the reasons why I made Monday and Tuesdays snow makeup days, because in the last 3 years, we've had days before Christmas that we've had it off. So we do at least make those up.
Well, what about using, instead of June 1st and 2nd, like you mentioned, what about using February 15th and March 24th?
February 15th is a community day, pretty much, trying to help out our community. Ski Liberty uses our students for a lot of workers. They use our parking lot, heavily that weekend because it's President's Day and that's a big weekend for them. And so that's what the philosophy behind the 15th and mine as well.
And the 24th March.
I guaranteed a day for Easter vacation for parents, so that they don't, that's one of the things, I think in the 37 years I've been in education, I've heard complaints that, come Easter, kids need a break, and we always lose those. We're down to Easter Monday, not Easter Monday, Good Friday. So that's why we kind of guarantee Thursday and Monday.
Okay, I'm gonna separate these. So do we have a motion on A to accept it?
I make a motion.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, we do a roll call.
Mr. Barlow.
Yes.
Mr. Carr.
Yes.
Mrs. Moscato.
Yes.
Mr. LaFever.
Yes.
Mr. Matthews.
Yes.
Mrs. Mikesel.
No. I just like more time to discuss it.
And Mr. Hatter.
Yes. All right, Mr. Barlow.
I will give more information on it.
Okay.
I believe last year we did hire another assistant coach for practice.
That was a one-year hire. And this is just a repeat of the same thing.
Same person?
It's based on the same philosophy that we have more kids than we had anticipated, and this just is the same thing we did last year. We hired coach after we saw the numbers of kids that were going to participate. 2014 for the varsity, we had 38 boys and 30 girls. This year, we're projecting 41 boys and 35 girls. For the middle school track team, there was a total of 18 boys and 10 girls. And this year, the boys track team has 16 and girls are projected at 10.
So we don't have a number for this school year.
That's what's projected based on kids getting physicals and their state of interest track hasn't started yet.
Last year we hired the assistant for the high school. Right?
This is for high school.
It is a high school. They share the coaching. So it's not, you do that, so you're one of them, so why don't you talk about it?
It's kind of a split position, because basically a specialist who does like high jump, long jump, low swim, nine, with both middle school and high school kids combined, and same thing with like distance and sprint. They'll kind of work together to coordinate the practices whenever possible. Obviously, meets in different situations, because middle school meets are usually here and we're away at the same time. That usually means that one coach may be like, maybe in the high school, also on the middle school, they'll stay and they'll go make sure that they have two coaches for middle school meet and make sure that there's enough coaches appropriately for the high school meets.
So we're not adding another coach.
No, we are not. We're exactly the same. We just do a one-year position, and now we're projecting them to do that same one-year position.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve K? Wait a second. Okay, go ahead and do roll call.
Mr. Barlow. Mr. Carr.
Yes.
Mrs. Moscato.
Yes.
Mr. LaFever.
Yes.
Mr. Matthews.
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Hatter?
Yes. Okay. That brings us to the other action items.
You want to do a discussion on this first? Because they're asking you to make an approval on a 15-16 budget, and we don't even have one for our school.
Okay, let's go ahead and,
At least hear it out.
yeah, let's do discussion then on,
Otherwise, I'd like to table it,
okay?
because I don't know what the impact's gonna be on 15-16.
Okay. Discussion on A first?
Yeah, that's, yes.
Yeah, go ahead. General operating budget, LIU.
Although we don't have a representative on the IU board anymore.
Right.
This is the budget that they sent us, that their board approved, and now they have to send back to the districts for approval.
Actually, isn't our share actually lower this year than previous years?
$135 left.
Now, does that amount cover everything that we're out? That's the school.
As far as the Lincoln.
Yeah, the Lincoln.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no way that can ever be true, because every special ed child that I have to appropriately place that may end up in an IU run classroom or facility is an amount that's not budgeted here. I mean, I do my best guess knowing on what we have in the preschool programs and what I'm aware of, but I could have a student move in tomorrow that could be easily cost us $175,000 themselves.
Right. I would just like time to look at it. My recommendation is that table. As you know, I've been buried under other ones.
Can you speak up? We're having a hard time hearing you back.
I don't know.
We're just wondering if, what the timing of accepting that is, if there's a time of the essence issue with that, when does that need to be accepted by the LIU?
I do know there were some school boards reviewing some significant increases in the administrative costs. There were a few other costs they were questioning. For us, our portion did go down. Keep in mind, this is what we're gonna pay against the total, basically all their fixed costs. What we pay for our own students comes on a wholly separate bill and a wholly separate item called Schedule A, and Ms. Vogler can speak to that. So because our costs went down, because of our utilization, I don't feel that it would be inappropriate for Fairfield necessarily to approve this. But you certainly futuristically, and I know other school boards are looking into the future at the LIU changing their budgeting process to be more like what is done in York. And I think you'll see that next year. I don't know that you'll see a change for this year, obviously.
But we don't have a time frame right now. When this needs to get back to it. So they get it by the next meeting or meeting after. Let's go. Well,
I can't, yeah.
because they probably got the same deadline as we do, which says what, June?
I can't speak to that. As far as what their time is in order.
They just want to get
proceed.
input back. So I would like to table this.
So you make a motion to table?
I make a motion to table this. So
Okay.
I can
We
take
have
a
a
look at this.
second on that motion to table. Okay, we have a roll call. This is just on other action item A, to table the motion.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Could I just have your recommendation as to whether you think that's a good idea to table it at this time? Or?
I would have to talk to someone at the LIU their time frame. I do know other districts have questioned some of the costs.
So the 2 weeks is not, it's okay to.
I can't speak to that, but I mean, we'll go
No,
into that
it's
assumption.
So.
And I will call the IU morning to make sure I know that other boards have not yet approved it, so.
I guess to take.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mr. LaFever?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiscato?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. Barlow? Mr. Haver?
Yes.
Mr. Winkman is now doing this.
Oh.
I'll stay.
Okay. Other action item B, the PSBA policy review, which I believe Ms. Kugler can give us some more information on to clarify.
Yeah, this is actually a recommendation from the Education Committee. Our district policy book is a mess, to say the least. It is not up to date, it is not current, it does not at times match our student handbooks, which is a liability issue. I will say, again, in the 16 years I've been here, this is the one thing I've consistently heard, whoever was sitting in the superintendent's seat, that they wanted to do is to have PSBA come in, review our policies, get them updated, get them where we were legally sound, and then move forward. So I brought it to the Education Committee because, like I said, I've waiting 16 years for it to happen. And the Education Committee agreed to move forward. The one question was the funding for it will come out of fixed costs. Funding balance, $7,900. And what they do is they actually come on site. They review 3 years of board minutes. They review our policy book and make recommendations based on where we're out of compliance with the law. And, right now with the new clearance laws and some of the other new laws that come down, I know we're out of compliance there. They will make the recommendation. They will give you the statutes that they match. They will also then look at our student handbooks, our teacher handbooks, to make sure they are in line with our policy book. And then they will walk us through the adoption process too.
Well, as one person that has tried to get several policies changed, and it has been an ordeal to do, we formed a policy committee and we started with the vacancies. That was the first thing we discussed, and I was on that. And I know it's time consuming. I have a problem with PSBA because we pay to be a member of PSBA, and every time we need help, they charge you an arm and a leg, it seems like. I don't know. To do the whole thing, maybe $7,900 would be wonderful, especially since we do it. So my question is, and so I'm not opposed to this, but my question is, then do we need a policy? We don't really need a policy committee, but we have, do we? I mean, so and you took it to the Education Committee rather than the policy committee, so I guess we don't need a policy committee. I'm gonna come and do it all.
As far as discussion on that, there may be issues that come up that the board members may want to look at. I know that when Richard and Lonnie worked on the frequent policy committee before about an appointment process, I doubt that is in the PSBA. There's going to be instances that arise that are generic, and then there's going to be instances that arise that are to Fairfield only, I believe. And I think that Lonnie's on the policy committee is greatly enhanced with the folks to address this particular district. I think the PSBA is probably going to be a much more generic flavor, and I think you're right, Ms. Kugler, that it probably needed to be redone, and I'm not sure that the policy committee would have the time to go through every policy and review and rewrite, and we don't know if we're following state law. And I'm a firm believer that we need probably become more compliant with everything that we do, and these folks will ensure that. But there's going to be instances, it could be something from the grounds that needs policy or anything that you're.
Believe it or not, I heard the Chuck.
Wow. So
I think it's important to recognize when you are the expert and when you're not. This is an area that's beyond my area of expertise. And some policy committee might be able to take this on, but I can't.
Right.
I think it's important to let the professionals look at these policies, and all the other policies where we'll be able to counter that.
So when is your committee going to be working on the 2nd of March? Or when will the PSBA get involved?
If the board agrees to this, I actually have a contract that needs to be signed and then sent to them, and then I will have more information for policy committee at that time. Because they will actually get an interview, so they make,
Now, the policy committee will be integrated with the PSBA folks in case there are any questions or anything back and forth with yourself and the administration.
He's asking a question.
Yes. So, yeah. So, that would be part of the policy committee. And then if odd things come up that, like we didn't know what to do about the appointment process. We did it from before and, that's kind of an ongoing, change. So I don't know, I think it's a great idea to have the professionals come in and set us straight on the
And we have the $7,900, so we know we're going to take it right over.
and just so you understand, there are like our grading policy is specific to this district. So one of the things that PSBA will do is talk to you about that and make sure it's, appropriate line and everything else. So that will be part of the policy.
For a little clarification, don't get me wrong, I'm 100% behind this. If it hadn't come up now, I would have been raising it with Lonnie and the policy committee. Okay. What I'm wondering is two things. In the agenda item, it says review and update. So they're actually going to review it and do the update for $7,900.
Correct. Let's give us a free year of their legal sendings on when the law changes, recommendations to policy changes.
Okay. Second question. Does this cover all of our existing policies?
It covers our entire Fairfield area school district board policy.
The whole thing?
The whole thing.
Okay. Are there any other policies outside that we need to look at?
No, can't have policy outside the policy.
Okay. So $7,900? No. When you look at our policies versus what I've been seeing in other school districts, it's a steal. From what I can know.
I don't know, $7,900 is a lot of money, so.
Yeah, but when you're looking at the volume of
It isn't gonna be a lot of work.
policies they're going to have to go through to assure that we're in compliance. I mean, these things haven't been updated in how many years? 20 years?
Some of them have not been updated for a long, long time.
So, I mean, we're looking at a lot of years of law changes that we may be catching up with. So I would vote yes.
And the other thing I will say that as part of the Auditor General's audit, they are looking at our policy pretty intensely. And I think this is one of those places where when that finding comes in that we are out of compliance because some of the policies aren't up to date, we can say up front, okay, we recognize that and we've already been proactive and started to make that change.
So how long have the state auditors been?
Seems like forever.
Couple of weeks.
Yeah, and they're gonna be here for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
One other question. There, the issue of bullying, is that covered under this review?
That is in our policy manual, yes.
So
And the state is very adamant about the regulations of what they require.
Okay, this will cover both teacher bullying and student bullying?
It covers both.
It covers both.
Okay. Borough, sounds good to me.
My question, before we bring the $7,900, don't we have a legal counsel, don't they review our policy book? And don't we pay them to do some updates and changes?
We do, we Sacramento do policy reviews for many of our districts, but that is a board decision, it's not something
And that would be the recommendation after we get it updated, then, let them continue to keep us up to date, but they aren't gonna review our entire policy book for this amount of money.
I don't know, so don't think.
So you don't know.
I have no idea what rate it would be.
You don't know what the last time was it was looked at.
You're right now.
Yeah.
I mean, but I don't, I don't.
Oh, okay. But you don't know.
I mean, I have reviewed a policy.
But not the whole.
No.
Okay, any further discussion on that? Okay, we have a motion. Second? Right here. Okay, can we do a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Barlow? Mr. Carr? Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mrs. Piscato?
Yes.
Mr. LaFever?
Yes.
Mr. Matthews?
Yes.
Mrs. Mikesel?
Yes.
Mr. Wickham?
Yes.
Mr. Bavin?
Yes. All right.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I just would like to say something about this, other discussion items. I don't see that we're going to, unless I've missed it, advertise for the middle school, high school library since we're moving her to.
That'll come, I actually wanted to wait and talk to the middle school and high school principal as to what their need, what they feel their need is, and it will come in the next 40 days.
And with all these
That's the discussion. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And with all these transferings that we have been seeing come in the last month or so, are they involuntary or do these people request transfers or did you just make moves or was there discussion with these individuals?
Some of this is getting the right people in the right seat in the bus. This one in particular, Mrs. Dean talked to Mrs. Flutta and she was and she made the decision to make this move. And I just supported it.
Okay.
Well, the source for teachers. This is informational for the board at this point. Adams County, all 6 of us listen to source for teachers, which is actually outsourcing your substitute teachers.
Is that why we have this?
That's why you have that. This is our fill rate from the first week of September. So you can see how many subs were needed in a week's time and how many we were able to obtain. We had one time where we had 100% coverage. Most of the time we are way below 25%.
How are those classes?
Teachers covering and, on the same period, and then we're paying for their, if it's an on-call, they're being pulled from the that's where they're on-call in high school. In the middle school, it's the exploratory teachers, when their students are going to that class. There are a few spots right in school, but the other day we had 7 teachers in one classroom.
It seems like an incredibly low fill rate. How does that compare to years prior?
Probably very close to being the same. We haven't had a large pool of substitutes to pull from.
Is it because of what we charge? I mean, what we pay, for the day? You think that's?
We do hear that a little bit.
Because we're going to, all of the schools are going to probably come from the same pool of teachers, sub-teachers, so if we should look at, or somebody, if they would mind, showing us what the surrounding districts pay for subs and what we pay. How do we compare? Because we maybe do some subs.
And that actually will come up.
Because I don't think we've raised the sub pay in several years.
That'll come up because the source for teachers, like I said, we all looked at it as a county. 4 of us have agreed that, we want to pursue even further.
For districts?
For districts. So what happens with source for teachers is the teacher, they're literally outsourced. They become their employees. There's a lot of advantage to that. First of all, that we will have a pool from all the subs that sign on with them. That's where our substitutes will come from. So you have a pool from Gettysburg and Upper Adams.
So the rate of pay will be the same.
Well, they pay, Source for Teachers pays your sub rate. So one of the things I will come back to the board and talk about is raising ours to at least become competitive with, because we also don't want, if you're out today, you would go into Source for Teacher and you would sign in on the computer that you were gonna be out tomorrow. And Mrs. Lascota may say, we want to say, oh, there are 4 people out. One's in Gettysburg, one's in Fairfield, one's in Upper Adams, or 2 in Upper Adams. Okay, I can do any of those. Well, I don't want to do Fairfield because they pay less. So I want to look over here first. So we may not want to be so far down that people that will get the last choices and still not be able to fill it. The advantage of Source for Teachers is teachers who are retired, and you know this for yourself, if they're working just for school districts, their days are limited. That is not true because this is an outsourced company. They no longer a school district. So they are, so that is a plus. So teachers who are retired can work, can work all year long. Source for Teachers will actually do the recruitment for us. They will have a person who does nothing but recruiting for Adams County. They do the, they also do all the bookkeeping. They take care of the payment. You know, they keep track of everybody. They take care of all the clearances. We don't have to do.
We pay them.
We will pay them based on what we say our rate is.
How do they make money?
There is a percentage over and above that. Remember what it was?
I think it's 30. It'll cost us, I don't know, based on the current numbers, maybe 20 grand.
Their contract involved, and they have exclusivity, so they can only use their folks.
That's what, if you're gonna outsource them, but the advantage is, there's a handful of subs that consistently have worked for us, and we can actually prioritize them, so they actually get first choices in the district. So we don't cut them off. They do all training with subs, they do extra training with them. They actually will provide them with workman compensation and with health benefits. Yeah.
Caroline, off the top of your head, how much do we spend on subs per year about?
You know, when I did this number, I based it on about 120 grand.
And then we would pay 100, or that would be what we would budget, and then plus 20,000 for.
You know, roughly, I have to look at how much does our fill rate affect our overall costs. And if we have a higher fill rate, it's gonna escalate the cost.
Who takes the sub calls now?
The secretaries.
Of each of the buildings?
Or the principals.
And then they call to get the subs. So now that would be done away. They wouldn't have that job.
Nope. And what happens is Source for Teachers actually puts a swipe machine in your buildings. And when I come in to sub, I swipe my card. It tells them exactly when I got here, exactly when I left. And you'll know exactly what job I'm there to do. So I can't come in and say I was coming in for you and get there and find out Mr. Carr's not in and say, I better teach Mr. Carr's subject. Well, I'm in for him. No. We know exactly who you're here to. So that will be coming in the future. But right now, we do have 4 districts within the county who have agreed to do this. And I will tell you that Franklin County, some of the districts there have signed on, and there's been a discussion with Source for Teachers as to whether or not we could pull from that sublist too. Because if somebody living in Blue,
it's the same company.
well, and somebody living in Blue Ridge Summit may be willing to come here and going to Tuscarora.
Right.
So we're hoping.
We sent a journal.
You find that a lot of school districts are looking at outsourcing, not just the teaching role, but other roles, other areas. I think what is done, I know a couple of schools have also looked at that thing as a way to adjust their budget.
There are districts who have outsourced, and I've heard horror stories and I've heard glowing stories. I'm not a big proponent of outsourcing, but
You have no control.
No control, and it's right now, to be honest with you, all the districts that I know have done it within the last 2 to 3 years. So to me, it's still an experiment waiting to happen.
Yeah, that's the thing I've been seeing, and that's not only in school districts, I've seen it in nursing homes and hospitals, they're outsourcing the nursing staff, also. I'd like to make a motion. Motion, well, I can do it during this time, correct? Yeah, okay.
Well, see.
If we do, we have to.
Have public comment, which
Okay.
is fine, I have no problem with that. It has to do with the sale of the property. And I'd like the first priority of the proceeds to go to legal costs. That's my motion. And you could say no if you want, but I missed the education committee because I was with my lawyer. And we went over everything. And I'm tired of false accusations, dead tired. I'm not lying, and I can cite you one example, even though my lawyer said don't, but I'll do it. No, I'm gonna do this. This is one that, and this is my own personal lawyer that I've met with.
I'm just
And I'm
gonna
not
ask,
a lawyer.
I'm just gonna ask you to remain respectful of everybody.
I am.
Everybody.
I am.
Okay.
And the people have to understand that there are consequences for what you do.
Can I intervene just a second, if you don't mind? And it's not to be disrespectful to you personally, but I believe that you said you wanted to make a motion, so you make your motion.
Yes,
I'm
I'll
making
make
a
a
motion. Actually, people
So
make
let's
your motion,
give them.
and then take it from there.
If we make a motion, we have to open up, we have to go through the whole thing and open
Yes,
up
I
public
understand
comment
that,
period.
and
Yes, sir.
dialogue back, everything else.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let's go ahead. I made the motion.
That's the motion, I'm sorry, I didn't understand your motion.
That the first priority of the proceeds of the sale of the property goes to pay legal fees.
What legal fees?
What's the legal fees? Well, we have the fees associated with the Freedom of Information Act, which last time I heard was somewhere around 45,000.
We've had lots of things.
I don't know the exact number. You now, since filing of a case, the deductible is 5,000. These are things that the board didn't do. No. I'm not gonna do it. But if you want your 3 minutes, I can have your 3 minutes.
Okay,
That's my motion.
right, the legal fees district, what you're saying then is
They
that
take
sale,
first priority in the sale of the property.
but the district's legal fees,
Yes,
cost to the district.
district's legal
Yes.
fees, not mine.
The board.
No,
I'm still confused about that. What
You know, ma'am,
Any
five of us on the board are being sued by members of Fairfield and people of this board. And, our attorneys,
Don't
the
go into
cost of
that.
that will come out of the,
don't go into that.
There's fees that the district is responsible for legal fees. And that's what Mr. O'Beaver is
Alluding to, yes.
alluding to. So, Mr. O'Beaver's made a motion, is there a second?
And before we second, to me, this would just be indicative of how we got in this vote in the first place.
I'm sorry, what? For sensationalism only. That's what you did it for. Not only that.
Okay.
We're making decisions. We should make decisions first, in the best interest of our students and our community.
that's right.
That's
Not
right,
ourselves.
we should.
Okay, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
Yeah, I second it.
All right, so put it up to public comment.
I'll go first. As an attorney, I have looked at the things that have gone on here. And I truly think, and some of you haven't been here very long, so I understand, but for those of you who have, we have asked repeatedly, this community, some people more vocally than others, for certain things and certain transparency that never happened. And so the filing of that case, and I've read the pleading, is not sensationalism. There's factual allegations there. Now, if you want to respond to those and you'll have your day in court and so on, that's fine. But unless a court were to find that that was a frivolous filing, I would say absolutely not one penny of this money should go to that. This is the board's creation. You have been listening to people for months and months from last year, talking to you and pleading with you to do certain things, and you've chosen not to do them. And so the board, feeling like their hands, or excuse me, the community feeling like their hands are tied, say, what can we do? So we're not getting a response. So this is what these people have chosen to do. I respect them greatly for trying to get information. Do I think it's divisive? I hope not. I know what their goal is. I know it was filed in good faith. And I do think Mr. Lefebvre is being divisive, because I echo what Mr. Whitcomb said. That's how we got here in the first place. We need to look at what's going on, and we need to move forward for the students, because most of us here have children, and we don't want to get in the back and forth with this. We really don't. So I absolutely would ask of the board, one, I would say table that motion at the very least until you see what comes out in the outcome of that case. But certainly if you're going to vote on it, that you vote it down.
Is there anyone else?
Yeah, I'm just confused a little bit, and maybe you can help me out. The district has to pay for this anyways, right?
Right.
So I don't understand why there needs to be a motion, why this even needs to be discussed tonight. The district has to pay for it anyways. So I don't think we need to say, oh, we're gonna sell this property, this is where the money's come from. We have to pay our bills.
Yes.
There's no reason to have a motion, set aside money. Let's just go on with the business of educating students and move forward with their education. And the rest of that, I don't think at this time needs to be in this room.
You're gonna earmark money from anything that needs to be for the students. We heard tonight, sixth grade camp needs funding. You wanna earmark money. Don't be selfish. Let's share it with our students.
Okay, is there anyone else?
I have to say, first of all, that I think this is fully inappropriate that this would even come up in this format. Second of all, I think if that money should go anywhere, it should go to the playground. Because Mr. Lefebvre, the fact of the matter is, if that playground is not addressed, you're gonna have a whole lot more legal fees in your hands, because it is still not safe. And it is our children. And I'm gonna tell you that a judge is not going to be very flexible when it comes to children being hurt because a playground was left unsafe. So if you want to earmark the money anywhere, that's where that money should go.
Is there anyone else?
Why would you, actually, we don't even know how much the property's gonna sell. So why would you even make a motion like that? Why, once the property sells, let the superintendent and business manager take that money and say, all right, where do we need to fill in? I mean, there's extra money coming in, that makes sense. I mean.
It's an asset.
Well, yes, but that's a different subject. I mean, you've got to, you don't even know how much you're gonna sell property. Why don't you make a motion?
Because there are people right now that I've been coaching for that is saying, why, we need to use this money for here. And I'm going, no, we have commitments that we need to fulfill.
Correct.
And we have to pay for it this year. It has to be done this year.
But you've got more commitments than just that, so you need to look at the broad scope of everything, the broad
I
picture.
understand it. But I want to dispel the thing that $170,000 is gonna go to playground.
That's
Hopeful, of course,
that's
that will go to playground.
That's what the
Playground
superintendent.
doesn't pay.
That's-
But the first thing you want to go to is legal fees.
We have to pay our bills.
Nick,
These
You have
are
to pay all the
bills
other bills
that are
as well.
Over and above what was in the budget.
They're all bills. You gotta pay them all. Why pay that
Gotta
first?
pay 'em all.
Just-
I want people to understand the impact.
But you brought this on yourself. It's your impact. It's the impact that you've created.
No, it is not.
Not you, not you
We're not
specifically,
gonna
but the
get
board
into a
is.
two-way discussion. It's public comment period.
But that's what it is.
Is there anyone else in public that wants to comment?
I would just like to say, again, earmark for the kids, and just like we're doing for the playground and anything else, we're doing fundraisers to raise money, things for the kids.
Yeah.
So.
Please give your name, Mrs. Davis.
For fundraising.
Your name, please.
I just want to ask a really quick question. Do we have to earmark this at all?
No, you don't.
So, okay, so I just didn't think we would have to earmark it. We could handle the money as it's always been handled when we get extra revenue. Is that
Is that, I mean, I don't understand why we have to create a set.
It still has to go to, as you know, in the budget, the budget designates certain amounts that is approved with the state. So they
But
can't
we have
just,
to do that now,
well,
before it sells.
No,
no, we don't. But at some point, you can't take from this bucket, move it to this bucket arbitrarily.
Right, and I'm just saying because this is such a, divisive issue right now, would it not be better to wait later on? And I'm not disagreeing with anyone, but would it not be better to wait till a later time to have a motion like this? Just saying, just throwing that out.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any other public comment? Go ahead.
Laura Dutter. I find that statement comical, the word impact. You're gonna bring up the impact of what this lawsuit has caused or any of these other issues that in essence has been caused majority by the board. But did you give us the impact of what it was gonna cost to remove our superintendent ahead of time? Did we earmark that money to fill in, and it's by no means any judgment on Mrs. Kugler, but did anybody come and say this is what it's gonna cost to do this, to replace Mr. Chang with Mrs. Kugler, and Mr. Chang not be employed for this period of time while we pay him? That's impact. That's what's impacted our school greatly, but you want to earmark money coming in that could be used for our children because of something this board has caused. That's comical, and that statement just was made to incite this whole group. And it's sad. It's like
Is anyone else on? Okay.
First of all, I'm not a lawyer. I have read the fee. I just think called reading comprehension. And what I saw wasn't sensationalist, but it's going before a court of law. A judge, somebody who's more experienced than any of us on this. If it goes in front of the judge and the judge says, oh my gosh, what were these parents and board members thinking? Then you have something that's sensationalist. If the judge says, wow, they have a point. The statute and this code were broken, then it's not sensationalist. I would recommend that you wait until the qualified judge makes a decision on this case, and then if you want to go ahead and earmark money, go ahead. But until the judge makes a decision on this, it doesn't go either way.
Is there anyone else from the public? Okay.
Now,
Before you proceed.
Now, the next step I want to do is retract my motion. The reason I did this was so that I can communicate to you the importance of this. It's the maybe wrong time.
Is that why you wink?
Yeah.
That was
Winking at the other board members.
When right at
Beg
it,
your pardon?
2 comments before the end, you looked at Hatter and winked. Was this all play? Like
Yeah,
you
it
accused
was.
us?
It was.
No, it is not. I'll tell you what.
But did
played-
you wink?
You
Did you
just
wink?
said it was.
Why were you
Just
winking
said
at
that.
Hatter, is what he's asking.
Called you out.
Called me out.
I just did. You winked at him.
Mr. LaFever, did you just withdraw your motion?
Yes, I did.
Are you withdrawing your second?
Yes.
Okay, now, I'd like to explain one other thing. Let's talk about the second grade teaching. Is anyone here actually believe that the person we hired from outside went to a second grade teaching position?
All right. Do I have a motion? Okay.
I just have one other issue to bring up. And that's, I brought it up in the last board meeting about the aides. And, we have discussed previously, before you came into this position, but I know you were so aware of it, that we were going to look at all of the aides. And we were going to see about whether the compensation is correct or if their hours are correct. And are we beginning to do a study on that? Because I'm going to bring it up every time. That's what I really think it's important that these.
that impact will have to be a future impact because of changes in insurance. So that will be a major impact.
But
Not that I disagree with
I
you.
understand, but we really need to look at the education that these children are getting. And I'm a big proponent for K through 3, because if they don't read on grade level, and by 3rd grade, it's very hard to play catch up. But we can do so much K through 3 if the teachers have the resources, and the aides are part of that. And so I just really want us to look at that. So what is it you're looking for the aides? I want teachers to have aides. Our kindergarten has 1 aide for all 3 kindergartens. If the 1st grade has, do they have 1 aide? Do they even have an aide?
They share.
They share. And 2nd grade?
The 1st grade, the person who's assigned to 1st grade works with 3 1st grade teachers and 1 2nd grade.
So 4 teachers.
1 aide works with 4 teachers there. The same with the person who's assigned to 3rd grade. She works with all 3rd grade and 1 2nd grade.
And how much do we parents, how much money are we talking about? I mean, if we're gonna earmark money, I mean, what's an aid, Caroline, of about for a year? 30,000? No, they're laughing, it's so Robin's
sitting right here, that's why I'm laughing.
I'm sorry, Robin.
It's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, it's comical. It is comical.
Less than half.
Yeah.
Less than half, but she'll take 30,000. Yeah.
And deserve it.
And deserve it.
And so if we had an aide, 3 in the kindergarten, 3 in the 1st grade. Let's see. We had 12 aides, all at 15,000 a year. What's that? How much? 160? 100? Okay. Well, that property being sold, there we go. We're in 1 year. 1 year we have. I would love to see it.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Do we have a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Thank you. We're adjourned. Mr. Stanley, are you going to stay for a few minutes? Let's go next door.
It's ridiculous. Is that how you guys go on all those great vacations?
Yeah, $30 a year. Oh my God.
I knew she. I knew.
12 and no penny. Sandbag.
I looked everywhere too, and I said, but then she's like, check it was like, so they had a desk here, and it was totally right.
interactions. These, I don't like that, but I like certain things.
We're going under.
Jim is
George, you know she turned us off. She did.
Yeah, there's, back in my day, you used to.
Well, we don't get that, they send us the privacy, yeah, but I'm gonna have to bring us.
I don't remember.